All right, y'all, welcome back to the show. It's Antiwar Radio. I'm Scott Horton. I'm talking with Kelley Vlahos and Jason Ditz, both from Antiwar.com. Antiwar.com/Vlahos for Kelley, and news.antiwar.com for Jason. You can, of course, also read both of them in, I think, every newspaper in the world or something, especially Jason these days. And we're talking about how America smashed and destroyed and caused more pain to the land that we now call Iraq than any foreign power since Genghis Khan came and salted and plowed over the irrigation trenches, however many hundreds of years ago that was. Wasn't that 1400s or something? 1300? I don't know. Anyway, what the hell do I know about Genghis Khan? But I know that was the last time anybody hurt Iraq as bad as America has hurt Iraq. 5 million people displaced from their homes. Still no water, electricity, or sewage that anybody can count on. And now here's the real fun part. Hey, Jason, what is the Iraqi National Alliance?
Well, the Iraqi National Alliance is a extremely religious Shiite political party that was run by the Supreme Islamic Iraqi Council before the March 7th election, but after the election, they didn't do particularly well, and the alliance has basically been taken over by Mossad al-Sadr.
And that's great, right? Because democracy and purple fingers and all that?
Well, it's certainly made for an interesting news story that his party, which had always kind of been a marginal party that would make a lot of speeches and organize a lot of protests and never really had any political power, is suddenly the kingmaker. But as far as the U.S. is concerned, it's probably not all that great a thing because he's been an outspoken opponent of the U.S. occupation from the start.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, depending on what you value, if you value Iraqi independence for their sake, hell, for our sake, then it's probably a good thing how much influence he has. But I feel bad for the people of Iraq because, like to hear Dar Jamail tell it, this was actually a Christian Science Monitor article years ago. To them, a woman's smile is a crime. And I asked Dar Jamail about that. Like, is that really right that in the whole south of Iraq, where the Mahdi army reigns, that it's really like Iran or worse in terms of the religious persecution and the oppression, especially of women? And Dar Jamail said, oh, yeah, you better believe it, man. That's, when they say that old Christian Science Monitor article from 5 years ago is about the people who rule the place right now, thanks to the USA. How do you feel about that, Kelley?
Well, I think that's the dirty little secret of this war. And again, something that you would have never heard in Obama's speech last night is, despite all this talk about freedom and democracy, we've created an ultra-religious Shia state. And, that's, far be it for me to impose my values, but that we spent, close to $1 trillion on these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and what we've gotten is completely the opposite of what we were told we were fighting for, where we do have women who are basically bought and sold like chattel, and mistreated by their husbands and cloaked and burqas and whatever. This is like I said, this is diametrically opposed to the belief that we were going over there to liberate a people, and that it, like Jason said, and like you said, and Dar said, this is happening, and it's been happening for years. It's just the media has chosen not to focus on the religiosity of the movements in southern Iraq right now, and it's a real sad state. And I'd like to go back for a second. We're talking about the quality of life. Michael O'Hanlon, as you know, who is a, mouthpiece for basically the pro-war faction of the Washington establishment, loves to turn to this Iraq index that the Brookings Institute puts out. In a recent op-ed, he said, well, if you look at our index, it shows that things are better for Iraqis today, and Iraqis support America more than ever since the 2003 invasion. Well, I went on that Iraq index, and a lot of these metrics have not been updated since 2009. And I don't know where he's getting this pro-American polling results from either, because the last polling they did was in January 2010, was of maybe 1,500 Iraqis who said 51% said that things may be better for them in 2010. And that's the last of the polling that's on their index. So I think,
Yeah, and you got to love the way they phrase that question. Better than when? Better than before the Iran-Iraq war that Jimmy Carter started, or better than during the Operation Yellow Ribbon, or the sanctions that killed 1 million people, or the invasion that killed another 1 million? Better than last year, better than 2007 when 3,000 corpses a month were found on the sides of the roads.
Right, and so when Michael Hanlon says this in an op-ed, and I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, but forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but it was in a national, newspaper that, our indexes say that things are better for Iraqis, and he's bald-faced, disingenuous about it, but people in their busy lives are reading this, and they're hearing from the president that things are better, and so they say, well, okay, things were worth it. Now, are we just in an exercise of making ourselves feel better so that when we look at these, soldiers are coming back with lost limbs and brain damage, we could say somehow it was worth it? What's going on here? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely what it is. Same thing as George Carlin talking about euphemistic language and why we call shell shock post-traumatic stress disorder now. It's all about making ourselves feel good. Hell, we got trounced in the Olympics, and all the newspapers reported that America got the most medals of any country, even though the Chinese got the gold, and it's about the gold. But instead, it's like we're all, 11, and our mommies are like taking care of our feelings for us real good. And who wants to admit that, or who wants to be the one to tell their neighbor, yeah, that war you cheered for and your other neighbor's kid that got his brain scrambled in it was all for nothing. It was all so that the women who used to wear jeans to go teach college in Baghdad could be enslaved under Muqtada al-Sadr's religious dictatorship. Good for you.
Right.
That doesn't make for very good TV, I don't know. And you know what, too? Remember how badly they attacked Michael Moore, and what was it that they hated that Michael Moore did more than anything else? In Fahrenheit 451, or Fahrenheit 9/11, he showed footage of Iraq, of what it looked like on the ground before the war. Hey, look, businessmen going to work, women and children playing on the playground and walking down the sidewalk and whatever. And that was footage that they never showed us in America. Iraq was a shape on a map. It was never a real place where real people lived, because then we'd have to take into account, like, how bad it must hurt them to get hit by a cluster bomb or something,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, so Jason, give me some stats here, man. Let's talk about the new State Department, Army. Hillary Clinton finally gets to be the commander-in-chief after all, huh? She's got an embassy to protect there after all, doesn't she?
Well, yeah, they're creating there have been several different estimates of how big it would be, but 5,000 is the lowest I've seen of private contractors that are basically combat troops working for the State Department, and the State Department is trying to borrow, which is to say have the Defense Department give them a large number of armored personnel carriers and attack helicopters and basically all the equipment they would need to build this into a small army.
I'm always curious. I don't even know where to look, really, to find out all about the bases in Kurdistan and how permanent those are. After all, you mentioned helicopters there. America's going to be the Iraqi Air Force for years to come, right? No matter what Sistani even wants. They have no ability to field their own Air Force.
Right, to the extent that they even need an Air Force.
Yeah, although, we're talking about a European nation state here. It's got to be our way, or, the American model. But, I don't know. There's a real conflict in there between the Americans who want to stay and are trying to, like the Israelis in the West Bank, right, establish facts on the ground that make it difficult to really abide by the 2011 timeline. They want to get down to the 50,000 now, but they want to stay past 2011. McClatchy newspapers reported that just the other day. New York Times had a piece full of State Department and Defense Department people talking about, we're staying. We stole Iraq fair and square. We're going to renegotiate that SOFA. So it's a real rock and a hard place type thing. After all this time, still the most powerful military in the world versus the most powerful Shiite religious authority in the world, Ayatollah Sistani, right? That's what it comes down to. Oh, crap. Now we're all out of time. say, yeah, that's right, Scott. Jason.
That's right, Scott.
See, everybody? Jason says I'm right. All right, thank you both very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, that's Kelley Beaucar Vlahos and Jason Ditz from Antiwar.com. And we'll be right back after this.